Hello, welcome to About Regional. My name's Ian Campbell. Thanks for tuning in on is it a Wednesday, John? I'm losing track of time.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. Welcome to a Wednesday, day 36 of the Yankees Gap Fire that's burning at the back of Bega, Bega and Bega. John, a community meeting last night you were a part of. A lot of emotion in the room, a lot of red faces, a lot of red eyes in the room. Residents really struggling with this, living with this fire for 36 days now. But how are you going? How are your men and women going? A lot of people out there working on this. How are you guys travelling?
Oh, look, it is. It's been, as I said last night, a concerted effort by all, not just the firefighters, but the team in here that are doing all the preparing and the planning. But look, it was interesting to watch the community last night. There's a lot of people in the community under the pump, and certainly the very visual there where that fire is, and the aircraft in the air yesterday. Certainly, it appeared as though that there was something else other than the fire going on there. But it really heartened people that the amount of resource we've put into this fire. But yes, that stresses everyone's under pressure. The other thing that's can be daunting is the wind changing around the dial. And 1 minute we're going to the west, the east, and then when that swings around to the north, and we have smoke coming back over the village. That can be distressing. So, and that's why we announced last night you'll see more fire introduced into some of this country here to cut off that fire wanting to march south and march to the west.
We'll pick up on some of that in a moment, but let's have a walk around this map. Where are things at today, day 36?
Well, the grassland breakout in the south, particularly Walls Flat, Pollock's Flat, and back into the Peak, that's at patrol status. One of the things we're finding on this burn as we go around is there's been a lot of big trees with hollers in them have caught alight, and they're being need to be dealt with a tractor or someone fall them, but they're showing up sort of 5 days after, or 3 or 4 days after the burn. So they're and they candle and that type of thing, and sparks coming up the top. We need to get them down so they don't go across.
Do you know what really struck me? So this is Bega here, isn't it? This is the Snowy Mountains Highway coming through here. Driving out to the community meeting last night, what really struck me is you can actually see how the fire jumps through the landscape, can't you? That is dramatically demonstrated in these hills as you travel along the highway.
It certainly is. It's interesting. It's worth stopping and looking back towards the west where it got out. And you can actually see where it's spotted, and a long thin finger come through there, and where it raced up over the highway there at Bega, there's the fire behaviour there, and at those houses there on the top side, and then spotted, I don't know, it'd be 4 or 5 k's to the next ridge, and there was some backing fire went back round to Walls Flat and other areas there, but those spots are very evident, and it just shows the dangers we're in on those sort of days, how far in front of the fire that activity takes place.
As a resident of Bega, one of the things you said last night that is demonstrated in this map and on the ground out there is that on Saturday you guys were preparing for the fire to come into Bega, weren't you? Yeah.
And certainly we started to form strike teams out at Cooper's Gully, that area there, to protect those communities there and look at where the fire was moving. Remembering we never had any aircraft in the air. Well, it was all visual from the firefighters on the ground. They were giving us intel back into here. And I walked outside for a bit of a blow and a fresh air, and there's leaves landing outside the control centre, and that was, the game was on. Yeah. But one thing about the movement of that fire, we were getting into the evening, a little bit cooler, and allowed us to get a halt on it. If that had happened at 10 o'clock in the morning, it would have been in Bega.
Let's talk a bit more about Saturday before we go back to the map. The weather on Saturday was just extraordinary. It was out of the box.
Certainly was, and the weather we worked on for Saturday was less than what the wind speed was. In our weather station up on that Nelson's Creek Trail recorded 95 kilometres an hour with wind, and certainly at 1 o'clock we were going pretty well to 1 o'clock, and then there was a couple of big heaves of wind hit this building here, and a bit of loss of electricity for a while, and we knew then that it was on. And I was talking to some people in Bega, and they said it is blowing normal Bega wind, heavy wind, and I knew then we're going to be struggling to hold things here, and eventually it did get out of it intended control line.
Yeah. What else has been happening? You talk about the big trees with the big hollows in them being a trouble. What else has been happening?
Just continual work on these areas here that anything that may come up, we can get around and make sure there's no issue there. Over at Hawkshead, they've done tremendous work there, and that's contained. A lot of resources gone into that. The background to the Nelson's Creek, we have today completed that backburn that wasn't completed the day before the big blow.
Yeah.
So that's in now, and we'll slowly drag this fire down with aerial ignition into that area there to take that country out so that it won't cause any problems there with spotting. Mm-hmm. But probably the biggest effort's been in on the western side, along Moons Road and those sort of areas over to Werrinook and to White Rock sectors and those areas there to get that secured in there with that back burning, and that's been completed today as well. So good conditions for burning, plus the huge attack on this fire working towards a White Rock Creek to hold it. One of our intents is to hold it this side of White Rock Creek, and there's been a big effort with aircraft today as well as yesterday to hold that from wanting to march to the west.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the aircraft. The aircraft in our sky at the moment is truly extraordinary. It's kicked in the last couple of days. And last night at the community meeting, there was, I guess, a bit of angst as to where were these aircraft 4 weeks ago when this fire started. They're here now to get on top of this fire.
They're here now because our strategy's changed. Yeah. Our strategy for that previous week was to keep backburning along Nelson's Creek Trail, mm-hmm. support of helicopters, which were managing that there with wetlining the control lines and burning off it. As I said, we got almost through, and we had to stop because of the conditions. This is a different strategy here. This area here is totally no control line. We're working on a creek there. And so what we're doing there is putting a lot of gels and product into there to avoid that fire and to limit that fire spread. Mm-hmm. And tomorrow we're looking at some of those areas. We've done well with this here with, the 70% of it extinguished, mm-hmm. and overnight was a good night, and looking at raft crews supporting that operation there to extinguish that fire.
Is this the main focus in New South Wales at the moment? I know one of the challenges on some of these big days has been that there's been fires burning elsewhere in the state, and that draws resources away from here. Is this the main game in New South Wales?
We're very fortunate it is. Mm-hmm. Yet there was some very high fire dangers in the north, and we had to look at being fair with our air machinery today, mm-hmm. that we were in a position to allow some of it to go north if it was needed. Mm-hmm. So yes, back into it tomorrow. Those conditions have eased in the north of the state. Back into it tomorrow with the planes and a large air tank and that type of thing, mm-hmm. to continue with our strategy to keep it east of that White Rock Creek.
One of the things that rang in my mind from last night's community meeting, and I guess it's a sign of the anxiety that people are feeling. People were saying, "Just put the fire out. Just put it out, would you please?" Almost suggesting that it's a choice that you're keeping it going at the moment. How do you respond to that?
Oh, look, and I answered that because I don't think a lot of people really realise the terrain we're working in, mm-hmm. here. It's steep, rocky, it's big ravines, and that really affects the wind direction in there. Even though that you might get the prediction we're going to get a nor'wester or something coming from the west or something coming from the south, when it gets into this country, it changes because of that. And don't forget, we're up at 1,000 metres in some of this country. So some differences there with what goes on. But the key thing is we're in drought. It's super dry weather, and you look on a map and say, oh, there's a good gully there, but it's dry. Mm. So, and the fire, and a great indicator is the fire, unless it gets treated, is burning night and day. Mm-hmm. There's your indicator. Mm-hmm. So that's the difficulty we're dealing with. And look, we didn't need last Saturday. But we'd prepared for last Saturday because we'd talked about September weather, rough weather in September, change of seasons. While we've got a lot of snow still in those mountains, I always believe we get that here. So, we could be in for another one of these sort of days. That's what we're preparing for.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the country here. What do pilots come back talking about? You fly over this country. It's not country that people sort of get into too often. What sort of stories do the pilots come back with?
Well, certainly last week, some of those people, the pilots and the air attack supervisor up high, they couldn't get over how cold it was. When you get up in that layer, how cold it is. But it's a typical, the country, they're amazed with the country. And that's one of the difficulties. We're probably a little bit less efficient there because of the big ravines. We're working with those fixed wing, where we're trying to get security there, but they're amazed with the country, and no doubt it looks pretty specky from the air.
Yeah. Plenty of people here. On my way in and out last night, I passed crews from Griffith, Queanbeyan, Corowa, Bateman's Bay, Goulburn. People from right around the state are here to pitch in.
Yeah, well, once again, yesterday prepared and planned for not a very nice day, and the talk was that humidity was getting down to 15%. Once we get to 15% in those areas, around that area, and a bit of breeze, fires will spot and fires will jump control lines. And as I mentioned last night, we've got a lot of houses out in that Moons Road area, and there was a lot of active fire backing down to that area. That we were any sort of change, we'd had the planning in place to sit a firefighting appliance on each of those areas. But there's been wonderful support to our district from firefighters out of the area, and they're keen to come in and help, as we do when they're in trouble. You know, it's a wonderful organisation, wonderful family, and people put their hand up and say, we want to go and help, and that's what's happened here. And all agencies have been involved. When you look at fire and rescue, parks, there's people from all over the state from the parks here, and state forests are back in there again with their machinery and that type of thing, working as a team to try and curb this fire.
Here we are, day 36. When's our next Saturday? Is there another day on your radar?
Well, look, the Weather Bureau and the information we're receiving here from our analyst that works here with us in our Weather Bureau is that we've got 5 days of pretty stable weather. But that wind changes and whatever, that can affect things, but the word is pretty stable weather.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Oh, look, as I said last night at the meeting, and I think that's a big indicator here. You know, it's a good lesson. People need to have a drive there and have a look what went on there and how far it moved and how quickly it moved. That people need to prepare, have that conversation in the family unit. What are we going to do on that day? What are our plans? Are we prepared? That type of thing, and stay informed. It was a little bit disappointing last night that people were coming up with how do we find information, and certainly we had a lot of paper information there. And people asked some really good questions last night, but that staying informed and knowing your risk is so critical and the community working alongside us to get this fire out and to save lives and assets.
People really need to empower themselves in these sort of situations, don't they? Can't always guarantee that someone's going to knock on their door, get the text message, hear it on the radio. People need to empower themselves in this situation.
Absolutely, and I had a day off yesterday, but I went for a drive just to get myself familiar with the area when I was talking, because those areas develop very quickly, and it's so important. There's a lot of homes in that area, and just get a bit of a feel for the preparation. And I was pretty impressed with the preparation in a lot of those areas, and spoke to some people and that type of thing. But you know, we've got a lot of livestock and animals out there. What are you going to do with them? You know, we need to make some decisions there with that preparation. And talking to some of the people in that area, they'd moved horses 3 or 4 days ago. So the importance is that those people are working to make sure they are safe, and a lot of those areas are very safe. But we've seen here, you know, an hour is a long time with fire. And when you've got those big winds going, look, that Saturday is something to behold. You know.
Always appreciate your time. Thank you. Cheers.
Pleasure.
Superintendent John Cullen from the Bega Valley Rural Fire Service. Thanks for tuning into About Regional. My name's Ian Campbell. We'll talk again soon. Cheers.